Good afternoon and welcome to the Cambridge Health Alliance Health is Wealth. My name is Roberta Robinson. I'm Director of Marketing and Outreach for the Geriatric Division of the Cambridge Health Alliance. And today we have as our guest Lisa Montuori Trimble, who is the Director of Community, I can't say it.
Health Promotion and Community Outreach.
Health Promotion and Community Outreach. And today we're going to talk about the very important subject of smoking. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I think this is important. This is the new year.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of people come up with resolutions or a way that they want to improve their lives. And often, if they're addicted to smoking, then smoking and dieting seem to be the number 1 and 2, I think.
That's right. I think most people also don't realize that most smokers want to quit. And about probably, I think the studies have shown that about 60% of smokers make a quit attempt, at least one quit attempt every year.
60%, that's a large percentage.
Yeah, so quitting smoking is often on the mind of people who smoke.
So should we, for those who may not know the risks, should we just run through some of the risks of smoking?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. So quitting smoking is one of the most important things you can do for your health because smoking is the leading cause of preventable illness. Cigarette smoke, so there's 2 parts to smoking cigarettes. One is the smoke and the other is the nicotine, and we're going to talk about the nicotine probably in a little bit, but the cigarette smoke is really what's most harmful in exposure to smoking. So basically, cigarette smoke is a combination of about 7,000 different chemicals and chemical compounds. About 70 of them are known carcinogens. There's also poison gases and
so if
toxic
I could, that's
chemicals.
in each cigarette, is that correct?
Correct. Well, it's the burning of the cigarette. Whenever you burn something, it produces gases, it produces particles, and it produces things that are just exposed into the air, and that is what's the harmful part of smoke.
More harmful than
cigarettes.
Than inhaling it?
Well, you inhale it. So what happens is when somebody smokes a cigarette, they inhale that smoke,
right,
and those chemicals go through the lungs and then into the bloodstream and into affect every cell of the body.
Every cell.
So a lot of people know about the danger that smoking has to the lungs, and that's certainly very true. Smoking is one of the leading causes of lung cancer. It's a major contributor to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and bronchitis, but it also affects every other organ of the body. So basically, when somebody smokes or even is exposed to secondhand smoke, that sets up an inflammation reaction all throughout the body as the body tries to fight off that toxic effect of those chemicals.
That's a lot of work for a body.
It is.
We don't realize that.
Right. You can think about it like if you ever go camping and you have a campfire and the smoke is like billowing
and the ashes
out,
and everything.
ashes.
Yeah.
I mean, what do? You cough, you sneeze, your eyes run. You want to move away from that because your body's really reacting to how harmful that is to you.
The body knows, and the body will always move to heal.
Right. That's correct.
If we get out of the way.
Yes.
So some of the risks, I know that stroke, smoking is a risk factor for even strokes.
Right. So the 2 leading killers in the United States and also in our communities are cancer and cardiovascular disease, and smoking is a significant contributor to both of those.
So cardiovascular meaning heart disease?
Heart disease and stroke.
So can we elaborate a little more on that? I mean, the smoke goes in through all of the cells and all of the organs of the body. So how does it affect the heart? Does it affect? I know it affects the lungs. Sure. And so that makes sense that the air that we're trying to pull in and trying to breathe and filter through. But how does it directly affect the heart?
That's a great question. So there's a lot of different mechanisms how smoking affects the heart. One is that one of the byproducts of cigarette smoke is carbon monoxide. So when people breathe that in, carbon monoxide is a poison gas. It's the same thing that's It's produced when something is burned. Your car produces carbon monoxide.
We've all heard of
Right.
that, I think.
And when somebody breathes that in, it basically competes with oxygen on red blood cells. So
Ah.
basically, less oxygen is getting around to different cells of the body, including the heart. The other thing is that another contributor is a lot of the chemicals in cigarette smoke damage blood vessels over time, and they also make platelets, which are the cells that help with clotting, stickier.
So if the vessels are damaged, then
Right.
they can't carry the blood.
Correct.
So then the blood, and then if the platelets and then the clot, that doesn't sound like a good combination.
It doesn't.
Mm.
Which is why, I mean, it's a really surprising finding, but actually just exposure. So if somebody's at risk for heart disease or stroke and they're just exposed to secondhand smoke, even just one time in a smoky room, they're actually, that exposure can trigger a heart attack or a stroke in that person.
Now that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible, and that's why I do the show. I learn so much when I do this show. So anyone that's at risk for heart disease or stroke, just breathing in smoke one time, just being exposed to it one time can increase their chances of triggering one of those conditions.
Right. So
It
it's
doesn't mean
somebody-
they're going to get it, but it
Right.
definitely puts them at.
So it doesn't give them the heart attack or stroke, but because they already have other risk factors for that, and because of the effect it has on the clotting and the blood vessels, it can trigger that condition,
That is amazing.
that acute condition in somebody who has an underlying disease.
That is amazing and scary, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, one thing that I've learned is that, because I have people say, I've smoked for 60 years, I'm a lost cause. But that's not true, is it?
It's not. It's not in a lot of ways. First of all, I think one of the things, I work a lot with smokers, and one of the things that people who smoke and quit smoking report is how much better they feel very quickly. So the effects of quitting smoking are immediate. Like we can measure people's carbon monoxide levels when they come in. We have a little machine that they blow into, and it measures how much carbon monoxide they have because of their smoking in their system. And a day or two later after they quit, that level drops down to normal levels. Within a couple weeks, like a week, people begin to taste and smell better. They often,
And that's a relatively short period of time.
right, their color comes back. They often feel calmer, and we can talk about that in a little
Yes, I
bit
think
about the
that's
effects
important.
of nicotine. And then those effects just keep getting better and better. So people who smoke are more at risk for things like diabetes and heart attack and stroke and also other respiratory problems. Their risk, as the longer they go without smoking, the longer they stay quit, the more improvement they see, and their risk goes down progressively over the years.
So it doesn't matter how long you have been smoking, you can start to realize benefits when
Right.
you do quit.
So, and the studies really of large populations of people show both the quality of people's lives and their risk for different diseases improves the longer they're quit, regardless of what time they start to quit, as well as their length of life in quit. So on average, for a general population, somebody who smokes really loses about 10 years of life on average compared to somebody who doesn't smoke.
Wow.
And if somebody quits smoking...
And what about the life that they have? The quality can be severely diminished, right?
So we're talking about length of life, and we're also talking about somebody's ability to function and be healthy.
Right.
The other thing that people don't often realize if they're smokers is smoking takes up a lot of time and energy and money. And so when we talk about, I often draw this diagram, and we're talking about, like, as somebody, we're changing from a smoking life, and we're bringing that down, and we're increasing this smoke-free life. So people discover all sorts of new interests, and they can build new relationships. There's a whole another life that's open to people as they feel better about themselves, they're healthier, they've done something that's really challenging, and they've achieved that with the help and support of other people. It opens up a whole new world
A whole
to
new
people.
world, a whole new world. I know that it's difficult. I mean, it's an addiction.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that as an addiction. We recognize that it's an addiction, and that it's addictions are
Right.
sometimes difficult to break, right? But not impossible.
That's right. So, I often think of this like, why would someone want to breathe in smoke? Like, that's not a natural, normal thing. I gave the example of standing in front of a smoky wood fire. The natural thing we would all do is move away.
Mhm.
But the reason why people continue to smoke is because of nicotine, which is the addictive substance. It's in tobacco, and it's a very highly addictive substance. It acts on the brain in a very similar way to cocaine and heroin and alcohol.
Really?
Yes, and another reason why it's so highly addictive is it's very short acting. So it gets, smoking is one of the fastest ways to get a drug into your system. And so when people smoke nicotine, it gets to the brain very quickly within 10 seconds.
Mhm.
There's a feeling of pleasure and relaxation that's released when that happens. But that sensation dissipates fairly quickly, like within, 10 minutes. And nicotine itself, once it's in the bloodstream, within 2 hours, a lot of it is out of the bloodstream, or the level is much less. So what happens when somebody becomes addicted to a drug, basically their neurological system needs that drug to feel normal. And without it, people go into withdrawal. So in the case of nicotine, they feel irritable or cranky, they may have a headache, they have cravings to smoke. So that's a very unpleasant experience. People want to get out of that, so then they take the drug again, and because it's so short acting, they're just on this cycle of nicotine and going into withdrawal, more nicotine, going into withdrawal.
Wow. Right, and so I know there are some chain smokers, and that lends to what you were just saying. And they want to just keep that feeling going as much as possible, I guess, right? The
That's right.
ongoing feeling.
That's right. And, I think this was a really surprising thing for me when we started running some treatment groups for people to help them quit smoking. Is I would see people who were smoking one week, and then the next week they would come in, and smokers often always say, one of the reasons I smoke is because it makes me relax.
Right.
But I see people one week be smoking, the next week be not smoking, and they just seem so much calmer to me when they came in the week that they had quit smoking.
Well, that's interesting.
And one of the things
That's
I
very
realized
interesting.
is that a lot of the relaxation effect that smokers feel from smoking is really getting out of withdrawal. If you think about it, a smoker's taking in these 7,000 chemical compounds. Their body's in a constant state of alert. Their
Mhm.
immune system is constantly charged to
Right.
fight out the effects of those of that chemical onslaught. Actually, smokers' white blood cell counts are higher, so it really challenges the immune system. And plus, they're always going in and out of withdrawal. So once somebody stops smoking, their body and their mind really have a chance to start to calm and repair. And it's, I think, surprising for people.
I know I've heard a lot of people say they smoke because they're nervous.
Right.
Right, and it's a crutch. They smoke, and I'm not sure whether it's a two-part addiction, whether they're psychologically addicted to it as well as physically addicted to it. They believe that it's going to help them through this, but in actuality, it causes a little more anxiety, does it?
Well, to be so I don't think psychological and physical addiction are really closely intertwined. So the other effect that nicotine has on the brain, nicotine has a profound effect on the brain. So not only when somebody takes nicotine in one time, but over time it actually changes the brain. It changes and reinforces learning patterns in the brain. It impacts concentration. In children and adolescents, nicotine exposure is particularly troubling because it actually affects neurological development.
Wow.
So mothers who smoke and their children are exposed to smoke in utero, those kids have higher rates of learning disabilities and other neurobehavioral problems that last long time after the child, for many years. So nicotine has a profound effect on the brain. So some of that is like psychological, but our behavior is very driven also by the health of our brain, right? And the
Right.
health of our bodies.
Exactly. Wow. Wow. This is really powerful. This is really powerful.
So I think, one of the things, what does this all mean? I think that's a really important question for people who are smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most people, I just read a study that they interviewed all these different smokers, and 9 out of 10 people said they wish they'd never started. And I think in my experience talking to people, especially longtime smokers, that's what they say, because it's just so hard to quit. And I work with people who have been gone in recovery from other kinds of substance abuse, other drugs and alcohol, and a lot of them say nicotine is the hardest addiction they've had to
Wow.
break.
The hardest.
Right.
So we recognize that, but not impossible, and we do
Right.
it not alone. We do it
Correct.
with help.
So I say it, I really do believe from my work with people, from what they say and my experience, that it is a really hard addiction to break. On the other hand, it's one of the few addictions that people often try to do by themselves.
Mm.
And I give the analogy, so since it's we have championship football going on now, to think about if you wanted to win a championship game, what would you do? You wouldn't just get up in the morning and say, "Oh, I think I'm going to go play with the Patriots," right?
I don't think that would work
No,
very well.
It wouldn't work.
You could say it, but
Right. So I ask people, like, what does it take to win a championship game? And what does it take? So what do you think?
I think it takes teamwork.
Teamwork,
It takes training.
training,
It takes some discipline
discipline,
and hard work.
hard work. It takes strategies.
Mhm.
Teamwork means that you have a team. You're not just doing this on your own.
Correct.
You often have a coach who's
Mhm.
bringing people together and applying what they know from other things to this situation at hand. The other thing that championships teams do is they study their opposition.
That's
And
for
they
sure.
learn kind of and they know what their strengths are and what the opposition's strengths are and how they can plan for those and where they need to protect themselves and where they have opportunities to really move forward. So
So I see there's a lot of education involved here.
yeah,
Really.
right.
A lot of maybe you're learning some of the facts we're talking about today that people maybe have never heard in their lives,
Right.
really.
Right. And you brought up a very good thing. So, the first thing is to really, now occasionally people do roll out of bed in the morning and say, "I'm going to quit smoking," and they do.
Hmm?
But that's very rare. Most people, it takes multiple attempts to quit smoking. And the most important thing about those attempts is we talk about the quality of that attempt. So the most important thing for people to be quit long term is that they make attempts and they make quality attempts, meaning they're attempts that they're thoughtful, they involve planning,
Mhm.
they involve learning. So any attempt that you make to quit smoking, in my book, is a success. A lot of smokers feel like, "Oh, well, I tried and I failed." But
Right.
every time you try it, you learn something. You learn something about yourself. You learn something about nicotine addiction. And you can apply that learning to being more successful for a longer period the next time.
That's an important thing. We always want to set ourselves up for success.
Right.
So, in what Lisa's talking about, really, and having all of the aids and the assistance and the support, that helps us set ourselves up for success.
Right.
And give ourselves the opportunity, every opportunity, right? So, we could talk. Now, we talked a little bit about secondhand smoke. And I know that they're even talking about third-hand smoke now,
That's right.
which is incredible. So I think the secondhand smoke, as you mentioned, can affect us with the lung cancer and cardiovascular, especially if we're predisposed and we have higher risks toward that. In general, the secondhand smoke is not good, and I know a lot of the housing buildings now are going smoke-free. The smokers are up in arms, but it's for a good reason, and this is what we're talking about today, for a very good reason. So I want to, so you work with a program, so let's talk a little bit about that, because we don't have a lot of time here, but we want to definitely get the treatment piece in.
So that's true. So, and I also just want to say, I think if we give one important message, the most important step, if somebody does smoke, a really important step for their own health or the health of people around them is to not smoke indoors.
Oh, that's a good point.
Because smoking indoors really concentrates the smoke, and it also keeps the smoke in the house or in the apartment.
And you sort of just recirculate it, do you?
Right. First of all, the air quality in the apartment is really poor. It takes hours for the smoke, when somebody smokes a cigarette indoors, for that smoke, the pollution in that enclosed area to go down to normal, safe levels. It exposes the smoker, who's also breathing in their own secondhand smoke.
So they're getting a double whammy.
They're getting a double whammy, and it exposes other people. And the people who are most at risk are children, because they're smaller and their heart and lungs work faster, so they're getting a higher concentration of those toxins. And people with chronic health conditions like asthma or heart disease, like older people who have those problems, because it, secondhand smoke, for instance, can make the severity of asthma worse in people who have it. So that's a really important thing. And the other benefit to not smoking inside is that's like a first step towards quitting for good.
Oh, that's good. Or maybe try to break some of the habits, like if the first thing in the morning you wake up and you put a cigarette in your mouth, and maybe don't do it first thing in the morning if you are trying to, making an attempt to quit. I would think that makes sense to me, that you would try to break your habits.
So the two parts of quitting smoke, first of all, the most important, one important thing is to have a plan. And a plan involves thinking about two things. One is the physical addictive part of smoking, which is dealing with the nicotine addiction. And the second is the habit part of smoking. So smoking is very much embedded in people's daily life. And nicotine, it reinforces that, because remember I said it has this impact on how the brain learns and remembers things. So the first part, the physical part of the addiction, it's very helpful often to use medicines. There's a number of different medicines that can be helpful. And they're not a magic bullet. They don't make you not want to smoke at all. But what happens is they take away those withdrawal cravings and symptoms when somebody first stops smoking.
So that's a help.
Because that's really when somebody quits smoking, the first reason they're going to go back to smoking, like within days or weeks, is because the withdrawal symptoms are just too intense and it's too much to deal with.
They don't like that feeling.
Right. So the second part of quitting smoking is dealing with the habit part. So basically the medicines help a smoker who's quitting have some time to build new habits and new patterns that are smoke-free.
That makes sense.
And together, that really works. That works well. So what we're talking about in terms of habits is you have to know yourself. So we don't, we have groups for people, and we don't say the first session, okay, quit tomorrow. We have people really learn more about what their habits are. What are their triggers? When do they smoke? When do they smoke more? Did they quit in the past? And why did they start smoking again? So what's their risk of relapsing in the future? And what can we learn about them? And then we have people start to practice strategies. I'll give an example. We talk about the 4 Ds. So when people have a craving for anything, you can use this even if you don't smoke. If you have a craving for something, cravings usually pass in like 3 to 5 minutes. So the 4Ds are a strategy to deal with that craving. So you have a craving, so rather than immediately react and do what you would normally do, like pick up a cigarette, you stop.
Okay.
And you can take some deep breaths. That's D number
Breathing
one.
is always good.
You can drink water. You can distract yourself.
Take a walk or something.
Take a walk, and that's related to the fourth D, which is to delay. To delay. So if you just wait that craving out, not give into it, it will likely pass.
It will pass.
So we help people build a real plan of how they're going to deal with cravings throughout the day and triggers throughout the day. Maybe they always smoke in a certain place, so you want to break that up. Maybe not visit that place while you're trying to quit smoking. It may mean changing relationships in your life if you always smoke with a bunch of buddies, right? So all those are really important. And then starting to build more other things in your life, like so you don't smoke in your, maybe stay in your apartment all day and smoke. What else could you do instead? Maybe you can start walking. Maybe you can join, take a class in something. It's really important to start to build in more things in your life that you want to do. Try some new things.
Right. I want to, because you've brought this, I'd like to show this, because this is, you have a tobacco treatment program.
Right.
And I want to make sure that, well, my red nails are there, but I want to make sure that the people see this. I don't know if you can see this. I will read this to you. First of all, the Massachusetts Smokers Helpline is 1-800-QUIT-NOW. That's easy enough to remember, huh?
That's
I
right.
think that was one of the reasons they came up with that.
And that's a free program for telephone counseling.
For telephone counseling.
Right.
So if you're in that craving period, let me come back to here. If you're in that craving period and you needed to speak to someone for something like that,
You could do that, but also if you're interested in learning more about how to quit smoking and what the resources are, you can call them. You can also talk to your doctor, and your doctor can make a referral directly to them, and with that you get 5 phone counseling sessions with a quit coach.
wow. Well, I think we're pretty much out of time. I want to just say one more thing, that the Cambridge Health Alliance treatment program is 617-591-6922. And I want to thank you so much for coming on board.
It's a pleasure.
I've learned a lot, and I hope you have learned a lot. And I hope it gives you encouragement. That's the whole idea, to give encouragement to know that there are people out here to help.
That's right. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Roberta.
Thank you, Lisa.